Gran Turismo 3 is one of the most difficult early games in the entire series. If you played the game as a kid, there was a strong chance that you got stuck very early on, and was forced to grind the same race over and over to make any real progress. At least, that's what happened to me when I was 4 years old, and I was simply unable to push my PT Cruiser past Sunday Cup. I believe that this was Polyphony's response to how easy GT2's early game was. In that game, you could save up enough credits for a new car after only a few races, and it was even possible to get a top tier race car as your second car if you rushed through the licenses. This means that your starter car usually becomes irrelevant after less than an hour of gameplay, as the abundance of credits and prize cars means that you have a ton of freedom to buy and tune any car you want. GT3's early game is the complete opposite experience. Because payouts in early events are so low, it's not uncommon to be stuck using the same car for 2 to 3 hours before you finally have enough credits for something else, or you finally win a prize car that's better than what you have already. Not only that, but a portion of the game's starter cars are massively unviable past Sunday Cup, and even the ones that are viable require very careful routing so you don't end up wasting credits on upgrades you don't need. This was a massive focus in my Gran Turismo 3 Ultimate Guide, as with a strong route, the 93 Mazda Miata can be tuned so it's viable for amateur league events in under 10 races. What's fascinating is, the original Japanese release of the game was even more difficult than what we got in the West. While NTSC-U and PAL both start with 18k credits, NTSC-J only starts with 15k, meaning there's only 7 cars you can purchase at the start of GT mode. Not only that, but many beginner league events also have smaller payouts. It seems that Polyphony knew they overcompensated, so they increased the starting credits for later releases, to make the early game economy a bit more forgiving. This ended up having a knock-on effect, as we'll see shortly. Overall, if Polyphony's goal was to make an early game that requires the player to gradually attune a starter car so it can compete in the big leagues, I would say they mostly succeeded. Most players casually will buy a car, do Sunday Cup, buy some light upgrades, move on to Club and Cup, upgrade some more, and continue from there. There are bypasses, like golding the B license and winning the Roadster Endurance, but this requires skill and patience, as well as driving 40 laps in a row in a low-powered car for over an hour. However, I say mostly succeeded, because there was a massive oversight that led to an exploit in one feature that carried over from GT2, trading. In the PS1 and PS2 GT games, the trade feature allows players to copy a car from one memory card to another. In GT2, cars would come with any upgrades they had installed on the other memory card, but their price would be inflated to represent this. As a result, a maxed out racing modified road car would usually cost over 200k credits to trade for. Trading is a useful feature, but far from exploitable. GT3's trading works the same way, but there is one key difference. No matter how many upgrades the car has, they will have zero effect on the car's price when trading it over, and the upgrades will transition over for completely free. This detail turns trading from a neat feature to an absolute game changer. If you have 2 memory cards, it means you can buy and upgrade a car, save to the second memory card, load a save from before you bought the car on the first memory card, trade the car over from the second memory card, and now you've paid nothing for all of the upgrades it has equipped. This opens up a ton of possibilities in the early game, especially in Western versions. For example, if you buy the AE86 as your first car, you'll have 4,450 credits remaining. You can buy a few upgrades like an oil change, sport suspension and a racing chip, save to slot 2, load slot 1, trade the 86 from slot 2, and rinse and repeat until you've bought every upgrade you can possibly buy for under 4k credits. This tuned 86 will now be competitive enough to compete in high-paying beginner league races, providing a massive head start. This was one of the early game routes I focused on in my Ultimate Guide, as the 86 can be further tuned so it can win the NA and 80s events. The process of using trades to tune up a car in this manner has been coined the trade trick. The trick can be used to gain an advantage all throughout GT mode, as the ability to tune a car for free is always going to be relevant. By fully utilising the trick, you can have an explosive start to your GT3 playthrough, jumping straight into the mid-game after only a couple hours of playtime. To showcase how powerful the trade trick can be, I devised a route through GT mode specifically for this video. This route doesn't repeat any event or race, meaning there's zero grinding involved. You can follow along if you'd like, or you can simply take inspiration from it, to carve your own route. This route only works in the NTSC-U and PAL versions of the game, and requires 2 memory cards if playing on original hardware. This route works best on PAL due to a region difference I'll get into later, but I decided to play in NTSC-U. Let's dive in. Instead of starting with the 86 I discussed earlier, I decided to go with one of the most unassuming cars you can start with, the Vitz Euro Edition, or Yaris in the PAL version. On the surface, the Euro trim looks very underwhelming, with only 84 horsepower stock. However, its price of 12,880 credits is perfect for our use case, as we'll have 5,120 credits left over upon buying it, which is enough to change its oil and buy a Stage 1 turbo upgrade. These two upgrades alone boost its power to 136 horsepower, and since it's so light, it's already able to win FF Beginner in its current state. However, we can push it even further with the trade trick. Let's walk through the trade trick step by step. Upon opening GT3 for the first time, I adjust my settings, then I save to slot 1. I buy the Vitz Euro Edition, buy some upgrades, then save to slot 2. I then load slot 1, go to the garage, trade the Vitz from slot 2, buy some more upgrades, then save once again to slot 2. By doing the trick 6 times, we can buy every upgrade we need for this route. Batch 1 includes an oil change and NA tuning stage 1. We won't be using this NA tuning yet since it has a low power increase, but it will be relevant later in your route. Batch 2 buys sport suspension and a racing chip. We'll tune the suspension before we race to increase the car's cornering grip. Batch 3 buys weight reduction stage 1, the twin clutch, and the racing flywheel. These drivetrain upgrades will greatly reduce the Vitz's drivetrain inertia and boost acceleration and gearshift speeds. Batch 4 only buys the racing muffler, while Batch 5 buys the stage 1 turbo. With this equipped, the Vitz now has 156 horsepower, which is enough to make it competitive for some upcoming events. The final batch buys the one-way LSD. The Vitz has no limited slip differential equipped stock, so this is purchased to increase its cornering traction and prevent corner exit wheel spin. After the trade trick process is complete, our Vitz is ready to race, and we still have over 5k credits left over that we can spend later on. If you wanted to, you could bring this Vitz to Sunday Cup and Club and Cup, where it can win with no issues. However, since the payouts at these events are quite low, the route will instead start with FF Beginner. Before racing, make sure to head to the car settings to adjust the sport suspension and lower the assists. 2 front dampers and 3 rear will enable easy rotation without understeer, and 1.4 camber on both sides will enhance the car's cornering grip. ASM is completely valueless as it slows down the car whenever it turns, so this should always be set to 0 for every car you drive. TCS1 will prevent wheel spin without heavily affecting acceleration. While not essential, driving a manual transmission helps a lot with the Vitz. Launching in second gear gives the car a much cleaner launch, and you can also avail of a technique called reverse shifting, which grants faster shift speeds by tapping reverse at high RPMs. Because the car has clutch and flywheel upgrades though, the difference in acceleration between automatic and manual isn't gigantic. FF Beginner should be a cakewalk. Usually the Lupa Cup cars are trash in these races, but it's possible to overtake it in the first few corners. However, something you'll eventually notice is that the Vitz has poor acceleration at high speeds. This is due to wind resistance caused by its drag coefficient stat of 40, which is exceptionally high. If you're falling behind, it's essential that you slipstream the AI whenever possible, as this removes the wind resistance penalty and you'll have full acceleration. For beating FF, you'll be up to over 9k credits, and you'll get another Vitz, except...
Say the line, Bart!
It's pink!
The Vitz RS generally has much higher potential than the Euro edition, but our tuned Euro is far superior at the moment. You may have noticed this pink Vitz has more horsepower than the one you can buy at the dealership. This is due to a hidden mechanic called engine break-in. To put it simply, prize cars have broken-in engines to produce 3% more power than dealership cars, while the latter have to be driven for 300 kilometers for their engines to be fully broken in. This means that using prize cars is advantageous, especially in situations where acceleration is important. We'll leave the pink Vitz in the garage for the moment and come back to it later. The next event we'll be entering is Vitz Race Beginner. This 5-race championship has excellent payouts for an event that doesn't require a license to enter. By winning all 5 races, you'll earn 35k credits, which helps massively with funding a new car and some upgrades. The AI here is slightly more difficult compared to FF Beginner, but our Vitz still has a straight line advantage over the AI. As mentioned earlier, we want to be slipstreaming as much as possible, while also denying the AI slipstream as well, as they have the same wind resistance penalty that you do. The first 2 races are very easy and should be a quick 10k in the bank. However, the AI will become far more aggressive from race 3 onwards. The most difficult races are Tokyo Rock 246, as the AI has a lot of momentum through these high-speed corners. It's easy to catch up on the home straight however, as the start line is very far away from the final turn. If the final 3 races are roadblocking you, my suggestion is to back out at the championship, buy some sports tyres and retry the championship. You'll make back the credits spent by winning the first 2 races, and the remaining 3 will be far easier as you can carry much more speed through corners. Assuming you win all 5 races first try, you'll now be up to over 44k credits. There is a prize car roulette, but there's one slight problem.
Say the line, Bart!
Not even gonna say it. Not even gonna say it.
In my test run of this route, I managed to get the pink Vitz RS twice. There are 4 possible colours with a 25% chance of each. If you're playing on an emulator, you can make a save state in the Congratulations trophy screen and reload it until you get the colour you want. To continue with the route, we need to obtain the B license. This shouldn't take too long, as there's only 8 tests and none are particularly difficult to get bronze in. With the B license, we can now access NA Beginner, which also pays a hefty 5k per win. In order to be eligible, we need to unequip the turbo in favour of the NA tuning we bought earlier, so go into Run In setting from the garage to swap to NA tuning in the parts menu. NA Beginner Race 1 at Apricot Hill is the most difficult race of the route. The MRS is technically beatable, but I highly recommend exiting and re-entering the race until it isn't in the lineup. Even with the MRS gone, the Vitz RS is a very difficult opponent. As always, slipstream when you can, and look for an overtake opportunity at the start of lap 2, as the AI tends to slow down a lot in this section. If you re-roll enough, you can find a lineup that doesn't have both the MRS and the Vitz, making a win far easier. The race at Grand Valley is much easier in comparison, as the AI is far slower on this track. After winning these 2 races, our credits total is 54,620. Race 3 at Apricot Hill Reverse is far more difficult than the first 2 races, and our Vitz is unable to win in its current state. We'll come back to this race in a moment once we have a faster car to clear it with. Because we have duplicate Vitz RSs, we can also sell one of these for an extra 3k credits. This puts our grand total at 58,252 credits, a very impressive amount considering we've only completed 10 races. We've pushed the limits of the Vitz Euro Edition for the moment, and it's time to start thinking about what car to buy next. We have a few options. The Altezza RS200 has 2 1-make events, and it can be used for both NA and Turbo events. It also gives you a direct route to the Altezza LM race car. The Camaro Z28 is a great option for American and NA events, with its main payoff being the Pagani's on the C12S from NA Professional. The Lancer Evo 6 can be used for the Turbo and Evolution meeting events, while the Impreza Sedan version 6 is eligible for Boxer Spirit. We could even tune the Vitz RS we won earlier and use it in Vitz Race Professional, which awards the Castro Tom Supra. For this route though, I decided to purchase the Integra Type R. It serves a few purposes. It allows us to clean up the remaining race in NA Beginner, while also being able to win NA Amateur. It can be used in FF Amateur and Professional, and it's eligible for Type R meeting events. The latter would turn out to be a massive enabler for us, as we'll see shortly. We can buy all necessary upgrades for the Integra by doing the trade trick 4 times. The trade trick works a bit differently when you already have cars in your garage. Let me demonstrate. Before buying the Integra, I'm going to make a save in slot 1. After buying it, I'll then sell every car in my garage. For the first batch of upgrades, I change the oil and buy a one-way LSD and some soft racing tyres. Tyre wear won't be enabled in both NA and Type R meeting, so there's no disadvantage to running soft tyres. I then save the slot 2, then load slot 1. Selling every car was done to fund more upgrades, as we'll be resetting to a point before we sold every car. Trade for the Integra from slot 2, sell every other car in your garage, then rinse and repeat. Batch 2 calls for fully custom suspension, NA tuning stage 2, a racing chip, and custom transmission. Batch 3 is the brake balance controller, racing flywheel, and all 3 stages of weight reduction. And Batch 4 contains the racing muffler, port polish, engine balancing, triple clutch, and hard racing tyres. Don't equip the hard tyres, as these are purely for races where tyre wear is enabled. We're finished with the trade trick for the moment, and we now have a 322 horsepower Integra that only weighs 961 kilos. While this is normally way too much power for a front wheel drive, the soft racing tyres will ensure the car has full traction while exiting corners without understeering. It must be said that we've completely broken the game's progression at this point. We now have a car that can not only compete in the amateur league, but will completely destroy the AI in the process. We've officially broken through the early game. Our first protocol is the final race of NA Beginner. Before racing, ensure that the soft racing tyres are equipped, then set up the suspension, brake balance and transmission. These are my recommended suspension and brake settings, to make the car feel responsive without inducing understeer. As well, make sure that ASM is disabled, and TCS is lowered to either 1 or 3, depending on whether you're playing in manual or automatic. For the gear setup, we're going to apply a variant of the gear trick. If you're unfamiliar with the gear trick, I've made a separate video explaining how it works, alongside some comparisons on my second channel that shows how it improves acceleration. Set the final drive to 5.5, then move the auto slider to 39, then to 15. Set the final drive to 3.0, then arrange the individual sliders in the super close pattern. This minimises the RPM drop size between gears from third gear onwards, while second gear will be long enough to exit corners smoothly without power understeer. The car will top out at around 160 mph, which is perfect for most long straights. The Integra has insane acceleration with the setup. Its RPM drops between gears will be so small that it will spend most of its time past redline when reverse shifting. It should come as no surprise that the Integra completely dominates any beginner, even against the more difficult AI in Race 3. This awards an extra 5k credits in the CRX Del Sol. While this is our first car that's eligible for Spider and Roadster, we'll be obtaining a much better convertible later on, so the CRX isn't very useful to us. I recommend selling it, though I did decide to keep it. Next in the agenda is Type R Meeting Beginner. Like Vitz race earlier, this event pays out 35k for a full championship win, and is well worth completing early, as each race is only 2 to 4 laps long. All of the AI opponents are stock Type Rs, making this a very easy championship, even if our Integra wasn't fully tuned. Upon winning every race, we now have over 73k credits. The prize car in TSEU and PAL is always going to be an Acura RSX. There's a very important region difference here, as the RSX is worth far more in PAL. PAL players can sell it for a massive 75k credits, while in all other regions it's only worth 10.5k. This is a huge early game boost. The GT3 any % speedrun runs the PAL version for this exact reason, as winning Type R meeting early and selling the RSX lets you build a very powerful car very early in the run. Since I did this test run in NTSEU, I opted not to sell the RSX, but it's something to consider depending on which region you're playing on. It's now time to enter the Amateur League, and we're going to need the A license. Once again, these tests aren't too difficult to get bronzes in, so take it easy, and try not to knock over the cones accidentally in the circle tests. Our plan is to enter NA Amateur, which sees a massive step up in prize amounts. Each race is worth 15k credits, and will receive a very valuable prize car once we're done. This event doesn't have tyre wear enabled, so no changes to the Integra are required. With the gear setup shown earlier, the Integra can win at super speedway with no issues, while the soft tyres and suspension setup will give it the edge in Apricot Hill and Deep Forest. Winning all 3 races brings our credits to over 118k. Not only that, but we receive a Mazda RX-8 concept worth 75k. This RX-8's value will be massively relevant later, even if we have no plan of selling it. I chose to keep it in the garage for the time being. There's one more event for the Integra to tackle, Type R Meeting Amateur. The NSX Type R can appear as an opponent, which would normally be threatening, as its MR drivetrain is vastly superior. The Integra is still completely oppressive. Even on tracks like Special Stage Route 11, the NSX falls behind and never gets an opportunity to catch up. The event pays 10k per win and 20k for an overall championship win, but we're going to want to re-roll the prize car roulette. Assuming you've won every race prior, you can save after race 4, start the next race, immediately exit, then proceed to the championship prize screen. After receiving your prize car from the roulette, if it wasn't the one you wanted, you can load the save you met previously. This allows you to re-roll the roulette as many times as desired. If you're playing on an emulator, you can instead make a save state in the Congratulations trophy screen to re-roll the prize car roulette, as shown earlier. Type R Meeting Amateur has a strong prize car pool. However, there's 2 cars we're particularly interested in, the NSX Type R and the special colour Honda S2000. The NSX is one of the best MR road cars in the game, with exceptional handling. It comes in a special black colour when obtained through this event. This is our highest priority prize car from this event. There are 3 S2000s in this prize pool, the Mugen, the Spoon, and the special colour Honda. All 3 are only obtainable from this event. Comparing their hidden stats obtained by accessing the game's internal database, we can see that the Mugen has the highest downforce of the S2000s, while weighing as much as the Honda. While this means that it has great handling, its NA tuning upgrades are very ineffective, and it can't get over 400 horsepower as a result. The Spoon has less downforce and weighs more, but it has higher grip modifiers, which give it more responsive handling. Its power upgrades are more effective than the Mugens, but it can't get turbo upgrades. The Honda comes in 3 colours, orange, pale blue, and pale green. It has the least responsive handling of the 3, since it's essentially the Mugen with lower downforce, but it has the option of both NA tuning and turbo upgrades. This is the most useful car for us currently, as owning a turbocharged FR opens up a lot of doors. It's also the cheapest S2000 by far. If we were to tune the Mugen or Spoon S2000 with the trade trick, they would cost 65k and 120k respectively, while the Honda costs under 34k. All 3 are eligible for Spider and Roadster as well, and they're fantastic choices for these events. Typically when you win a championship, you'd roll one of the 4 prize cars and that's it. If you wanted another, you'd have to redo the championship. However, we're in a strong position right now, because we have 2 memory cards and 178k credits. We can use the trade trick to win one of the 4 prize cars, upgrade it, save to slot 2, load slot 1 to go back to before the roulette, win another car, then trade for the first car we won. This is a very effective way to collect prize cars that can't be obtained anywhere else. We're going to apply this to get the Honda NSX Type R, Honda S2000, and the Spoon S2000 by only completing the championship once. The first prize car we want is the Honda S2000. Re-roll the roulette until you get it in your colour of choice. In my case, I opted for orange. Then, sell every car in your garage except for the S2000. This gives us 278k credits to upgrade the S2000 with, which is enough to buy every upgrade in one fell swoop. Even though we could afford the Stage 3 turbo, I highly recommend the Stage 2 instead, as this gives it balanced tyre wear when running a harder tyre compound. Buy medium slick so you can equip them whenever tyre wear is enabled, so it can comfortably do 5-lap stints. You'll also have enough credits for NA Tuning Stage 3, which you can keep to the side in case you want to use the car for NA Professional. With all upgrades purchased, save to slot 2, load slot 1, and re-roll until you win the NSX. Sell every other car in your garage besides the NSX. But before upgrading, remember to trade the S2000 from slot 2. We'll have 244k credits this time, which is still more than enough to fully tune the NSX. As with the S2000, I recommend Stage 2 of NA tuning instead of Stage 3, as not only is it cheaper, it also gives it much more balanced handling and tyre wear. Save to slot 2, load slot 1, and now we can finally re-roll for the Spoon S2000. Even though we have no plans to use the Spoon, it has the highest value of the 4 cars and can be sold for 30k credits, which may come in handy later on. Trade for both the NSX and S2000 from slot 2, and now we have a stacked garage and over 44k credits left over. The game has been broken wide open at this point, but we're not finished yet. We own a great FF, FR, and MR, but we're missing a 4-wheel drive. Something like a Skyline GTR would be a perfect addition, as it could also enter the high-paying Race Red Emblem event. We're also missing a race car, which would make the Amateur League far easier. While we decide what to aim towards next, there's an easy high-paying event we can do in the meantime, Turbo Amateur. This is an opportunity to test drive our new S2000, especially as tyre wear isn't enabled in this event. Before racing, check to see if the car is super soft-equipped, then adjust the car settings. These settings aim to improve the car's traction and responsiveness without constant snap oversteering. For the gear setup, set the final drive to 4.8, then auto to 42, then to 18. We want to set the final drive to 2.8, then arrange the individual sliders in the super close pattern, as shown. A final drive at 2.8 would give it just enough top speed from most tracks. When using the S2000 on test course, lower the final drive to 2.5, so the car can hit over 200 miles per hour. Remember to raise it to 2.8 afterwards. The S2000's lightweight, evenly distributed chassis gives it fantastic handling, especially when equipped with super softs. Its sheer momentum may take some getting used to, but it's a very rewarding car to drive well. It'll sweep Turbo Amateur, earning 45k credits in the process. The prize car is the Mine's Lancer Evo 6. Normally in a casual playthrough, obtaining this car is a massive breakthrough, as it's a very strong car when obtained early. For us though, it's simply another addition to our massively overpowered garage. We have a 4-wheel drive now, but we can set our sights towards something greater. I demonstrated how to get 3 out of 4 prize cards from a roulette using the trade trick. However, what if we wanted all 4? This could be realised by entering European Championship, a simple 5-race championship with tyre wear disabled against European road cars. It's time to take the NSX for a spin. As usual, check if the car is super soft equipped, then make some setup adjustments. Most of the setup is similar to the S2000s, though the NSX's higher rear grip means that it can run lower rear stabilizers and a less aggressive LSD for more responsive handling. For the gears, apply the gear trick as shown. If you thought the S2000 handled well, the NSX is in a class of its own. It has incredible rotation, while still feeling very stable through corners. I feel like I should just let these clips speak for themselves. As before, save to slot 1 after finishing race 4, then immediately exit after starting race 5 to roll the prize car roulette. As we want all 4 cars this time around, we'll go through each one in order. The first car we want is the special colour R34 Skyline GTR. This comes in one of 2 colours, a colour shifting blue and midnight purple. For me, the choice was obvious. After selling every car in the garage, we have over 333k credits. When upgrading the R34, make sure to avoid LSD upgrades along with the VCD controller. These will induce understeer and make the R34 more difficult to rotate. The Stage 2 Turbo is the most well-balanced option for circuit racing. For tyres, buy hards, mediums and super softs. With hards in front and mediums on rear, the R34 can barely squeeze out 5 lap stints on any track. It can then run super softs on both front and rear whenever tyre wear is disabled. These are my suspension and transmission settings in combination with the Stage 2 Turbo. When you're done, save to slot 2, then load slot 1. We now want the special colour release 190. There are 5 special colours that the release can appear in, and in my case, I went with the Peridot Green. Trade for the GTR, then sell every other car in your garage. For the Elise, I recommend NA tuning. With mediums, the Elise can perform 5 to 7 lap stints on any track. This is especially important for the Elise Trophy 1 make, where every race is 10 laps long, and the Elise can make a single pit stop to take a comfortable lead. The Elise is one of the most difficult cars to drive in the game, as it loses balance very easily due to its 3961 weight distribution and short wheelbase. The solution for this is camber adjustment. With 6.5 degrees front and 3 rear, the car holds grip much more easily in combination with a raised ride height. These are the rest of my settings. Once done, save to slot 2, load slot 1, and now we want to reset for the Mini Cooper. This car has far more niche applications than the prior 2 cars, but it can be used to easily clear lightweight K. It only costs around 16k credits, and it can't be bought from the dealership, so it's a cheap pickup. Trade for both the GTR and Elise, and sell every other car in your garage. When upgrading, buy the Stage 2 Turbo and the one-way LSD. You only need super softs, as lightweight K has tyre wear disabled. These are my suspension and transmission settings. Save to slot 2, then load slot 1 to reset for the final prize car, the Gillet Vertigo race car. The Vertigo only weighs 803 kilos, and while it has a very front-heavy 5743 weight distribution, it sails through high-speed tracks on stock power, while comfortably performing 5-lap stints on its stock medium tyres. After adjusting the suspension and downforce, it has fantastic handling, and it can be used to beat the majority of the Amateur League Championships without any upgrades. These are my settings when running stock power. On long straights, keep it in 5th gear, and it can just about hit over 170 miles per hour. We can now trade for the 3 cars in slot 2, and with that, we've reached the end of the route. While we've spent most of our savings, we're in an incredibly powerful position. We have a fully tuned FF, FR, MR, 4-wheel drive, K car, and a race car, meaning we can now enter and win a majority of events in the beginner and amateur leagues. After only a couple hours of gameplay, we've set ourselves up for the rest of the playthrough. What you choose to do from here is completely up to you. Hopefully this route was able to demonstrate the sheer power of the trade trick and how you can use 2 memory cards to completely trivialize the game's progression. If you'd like to read more about anything I talked about in this video, I suggest taking a look at my Ultimate Guide Handbook. This is a 260-page Google Doc that breaks down almost every mechanic in the game and has a large number of tuning setups for a variety of cars. If you have any questions beyond that, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.